This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Larry Pomfret of North Simcoe Property Management. Larry, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having me. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Did I pronounce your last name right?
It's phonetic, Pomfret. But I had a question about your last name. It said Gardner, but there's a T.
Yeah.
So like Mike Gardner says Gartner, but you say Gardner.
I should be saying Gartner. Yeah.
Oh,
I think I just said it so many times. I'm not pronouncing the T quite right. And yeah, Mike Gartner, a lot of people have asked me about that. He's not related to me, but I love hockey and I played hockey competitively as a kid. And he came to, Dad sent me to a hockey camp in Ottawa, and a couple of pros. Richards came there, Mike Gartner came there, a couple other people came there, and he signed my glove. And
That's
so
awesome.
I was like 8, and he's like, we're probably long lost brothers. Like, just put the biggest smile on a kid's face, right? And we got to play with everybody. It was great.
Oddly enough, I met him for the first time about 2 weeks ago.
Really? Wow. How is he?
Oh, he was great. He's just taken over the leadership from a retired player perspective of the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I was at the Hockey Hall of Fame for an event. So it was
beautiful. Hockey fan yourself, I'm guessing?
Big fan. And like you, I played when I was a kid and gave it up when it started to hurt too much to recover after a game.
Yeah, that's what it is. Let's talk about your business, Larry. Sure. What is North Simcoe Property Management? What do you do?
What we do is we help landlords more effectively manage their investment properties. As you know, for the last number of years, there's been a significant increase in the purchase of investment properties in Simcoe County. And what happens is people say, oh, I want to buy an investment property. I want to rent it out. And then they start getting calls at 1 a.m. saying the furnace isn't working, or they get a tenant that stops paying. Or they have difficulty finding a tenant, or they get the wrong tenant. What we want to do is say to those landlords, essentially, your job as a landlord, once you engage us, is to sit in your chair and wait for the rent to arrive every month. That's your entire job. We do everything else.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. When I saw property management, I thought you were going to talk about many businesses have that word property management in there, and it's usually the outside.
Oh, so I understand what you mean. There's, I guess, somewhat of an intersection between property maintenance and property management. We do, as part of the service for our clients, source property maintenance, specifically lawn cutting, snow shoveling, landscaping, cleanup, etc. But as a general rule of thumb, that's not our core business.
So I buy an investment property and I decide to hire you guys. Do you find a tenant? Like, walk me through the experience, because I'm really interested in this. I mean, I'm interested in most of the businesses that come on here, some not so much. I'm not going to lie. But, having my wealth grow for me, certainly real estate can be a good business. It's treated me well, and hands off sounds very appealing, Larry.
As it does for most of our clients, really. So firstly, we'd walk through, the vagaries of our contract. You say, yeah, we're all in with North Simcoe Property Management. We high five each other, and then we get to work. If the property is not tenanted, our first job is to find appropriate tenants. Now, we advertise in a number of different sources, social media, specific tenant websites that people go looking for rental properties. And, excuse me. And then we vet the tenants utilizing like hard work on our part, for instance, calling old landlords, calling employers, etc., but also reviewing credit bureau reports to see, is this person somebody that is financially stable enough to pay their rent every month. Now, having said that, we don't rely 100% on the credit bureau report, because whether or not they pay their Visa bill or their cell phone bill is not necessarily indicative as to whether or not they'll pay their rent every month, but it is a helper.
So, okay, so that's great. So you vet the guys, you get the tenant.
Yeah.
And then like really, so I have a leak in the roof, furnace, cutting the grass, any of this stuff.
Well, generally speaking, it kind of depends on the property. If it's a single family home that you've invested in, then normally the tenant will be responsible for a lot of the upkeep of the property, inclusive of cutting grass, shoveling snow. But if there's a repair where there's dollars out of pocket, then we've got for lack of a better term, stable of contractors that we call for heating and ventilating, air conditioning, for plumbing, electrical, flooring, drywall, roofing, etc.
So that's fantastic. So the way, when I invested into a property, I had to do all these things, and there was some nightmares. But all the rent money that was coming. So not only was it building equity in the home, but all the rent money was coming to me as well. And in one particular situation, it covered all the expenses and put a handful of $100 in my pocket a month on the successful months. And then I had to do the furnace. So, of the $400 extra I collected a month for 6 months, that all went to the furnace. So I pretty much washed it anyways. But now learning about this, as I've never actually heard of a business like this before. And I love the concept. So if I buy into a home and I'm no longer taking care of any of that stuff, like you said, I'm just collecting the rent check. I imagine a large portion of it is going to you guys, whereas now I'm just building up the equity.
No, it's actually it's a fairly small portion is coming to us.
Really?
We do, yeah. Our fee is essentially a percentage of the rent that we collect. Now we try and make that, especially with new properties that are not tenanted. We try and, definitely say that my partner Linda Shipley and I can maximize the amount of rent that you're getting for a place. We know what the market will bear. We know what to put into a lease to ensure that a tenant is appropriately compensating the landlord, is working with their own agreements with the utility companies, etc., when that's possible, of course. So we want to ensure that the maximum amount of money comes into your pocket, but our fee is a small percentage of the total rent collected.
How do you guys make money, Larry?
Well, it's we started in 2023. I know we're going to get into the history of the company, but essentially the small portion, Walmart doesn't make a whole whack of money on every single thing that they sell, but they sell enough of them that they make a buck or two. And we're in the same boat. While we don't make a ton of money off of any individual landlord, we have enough landlords that we work for that it's worthwhile. And we've got a couple of differentiators. It's a fairly competitive industry. Oddly enough, it's interesting you've not heard of it because there are a number of players in this sandbox, and we've got a couple of differentiators that separate us from the pack, I think.
And did you say you guys started in 2023?
That's right. Yeah.
So in 1 year, you guys, it's been a good business to you already, or 2
Very
years?
much so. We were. So we're in, we've been around since June 1st of 2023. So that's, I guess, 6 quarters, something like that. Mm-hmm. And we've gone from nothing except an idea and a handshake to we now manage a little over 100 doors. That's the parlance that you use in the industry, is how many doors do you have, and that sort of thing. So we've got a little over 100 units that we manage.
And I'm curious because at the end of the day, this is a show about business essentially and our community and connecting and all that. How did you guys get to that point? Did you guys have, that's pretty successful, 6 quarters, you're looking at, 15 new doors every quarter, roughly, if you're around 100 doors or so. Did you guys have history in the business prior, you and your partner?
We did, both of us. My partner, Linda, worked for another property management company. And when that company got sold, she decided to leave, and it was a bit of a drive for her anyways. And prior to opening this business, I have a paralegal practice in Barrie as well. And I do a great deal of work with the landlord and tenant board. So we both had a number of contacts of landlords who have investment properties and who have situations like this they need help with. So we did have a better head start than I suppose most people who said, gee, I'd love to be a property manager.
And so this is the full-time business now. You're still doing paralegal work?
I am, yeah. Actually, it dovetails very nicely with the property management company. And one of the differentiators I talked about earlier is the fact that our clients, the landlords, don't have to pay a legal fee if they want to evict somebody. We take care of that. That's included in the fee. So my time, which is extraordinarily valuable otherwise, is paid for with the fees that we collect from the landlords.
I love it.
Yeah.
Myths and misconceptions. So not only do we want to bring on a business and share their story, make sure that people are aware of you. Like, as I said a few moments ago, I'm still a rookie to the industry for sure, but I've had experiences and was unaware that there was this kind of white glove service out there that could have saved me a lot of nightmares.
Oh, absolutely.
It was stressful.
Yeah.
Not only do we want to share the story, but the educational points. If people can come on here, learn about a business and service that can increase the quality of their life, huge win. If they can come on here and be empowered with knowledge in some way that leads them to making better decisions, doubly a huge win. So let's talk about the myths and misconceptions of the investment property world from your point of view. What are people thinking out there that's leading them to either higher stress in their life, lower profit margins, or just poor decisions that we can clarify?
Absolutely. Great question, Jeff. And before I answer that, I'm obliged as a licensee of the Law Society of Ontario to say that this should not be construed as legal advice, and get in touch with us if you require legal advice, and I'm happy to oblige. But the biggest myth for landlords is it's easy to do this by oneself. When I was a younger man, I had a basement apartment in a house I owned in the East End of Barrie, and oh my gosh, did I hate it. I hated finding new tenants, going down there and finding a disaster area, or somebody shows up with a new puppy, and then there's new puppy problems in the basement all the time. That kind of stuff is what we do and what we try to solve. But in terms of myths and misconceptions, landlords should know that there is, for residential leases, there is a standard lease in Ontario that they must use. They can't just write something up quickly on the back of a napkin and say, here's our lease. Landlords in residential leases cannot dictate whether or not somebody has a pet. There's no such thing as a valid no pets clause in Ontario. The only exception to that is where there's, if the unit is in a condominium, there's a condominium bylaw that restricts the presence of or size of pets. And in terms of the number of people that are included, if I rent a one-bedroom apartment to somebody and their significant other decides to move in, that's not something that the Residential Tenancies Act disallows. So if somebody does want to have somebody move in both as either as a guest or as another resident, unless it's contrary to fire codes or safety or health, then that's absolutely fine. So the only time then that wouldn't be allowed is if there's a one-bedroom apartment and 14 people move in. Obviously, that's a little overstatement, but that's contrary to health and safety codes, for sure.
So there's a limit based on space and fire code, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Building code. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The easy part is, I think most people haven't had an investment property, out of all of us, but a lot of us have. And that is a common story about how my parents, first two, I think they lived in a condo, they bought another one, and then they moved into a home and bought another condo. And it was just a nightmare for them, warned me about it. And I'm like, I wanted to get my hands dirty and start, letting my money stretch for me a little bit. I really had this romanticized idea in my head, Larry, that I could do my 40, 50 hours a week at my gym business and then, start like Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad, start building up investment property. And, by the time I'm 45, have 1,000 of them, be some real estate mogul. No, that dream died after year 2. And I just started pouring effort into my own skills for my own business, but no longer in the investment property world because it was a nightmare. It was painful. It's a painful experience. Now I know it can be more joyful, but I would want an expert I would just want you guys to I can just sit and collect the rent. I don't even care the portion. As long as I'm building up equity, good with it.
And that's
stress
exactly
is much more important to me.
That's exactly true, Jeff. And that's what we do is we do everything related to the management of that property. And so as an investor, you're no more hands-on than you would be as if you bought shares in a large corporation. It's your business for sure, owning an investment property. And we get you involved if there's a major question to ask, of course. If there's a major repair, then we're going to run it by you before we spend a lot of your money. But essentially, it becomes a very, very simple process for a landlord. And they get a statement from us in the first week of the month, and the remittance comes along with the statement. And next month, the same thing happens. We just start over again.
Beautiful. I imagine not, but questions lead to answers. You guys don't help pick the properties.
Not necessarily. We're not realtors, and I certainly don't hold myself out as an expert in that. But if somebody called and said, "I'm thinking about buying an investment property in Barrie," you could talk a little bit, or I could talk a little bit about what's great about Midhurst, what's great about the East End, what's great about the area around the college, what's great in the South End. And we know that just anecdotally, but it's not something that is part of our expertise in this industry for sure.
But I imagine since you've been here all your life and been in this world that you could at least provide some guiding wisdom. But yeah, there's a lot of great real estate agents out there as well. I just figured I'd ask. Pivoting to you a little bit, Larry, I like these rapid fire questions. 5 things that really light you up, that put a smile on your face. We say 5 because you're probably going to say family and business, and I was tired of hearing those 2 things only. So if you do those, we need 3 more.
Okay, well, family. I love my boys. I love my Sharon, and the extended family. It's just it's the great joy of my life, and my beautiful granddaughter Carmela. Business is great. I'm 58 years old, and I'm probably working a little bit harder than I'd like to be right now. But such is life when you start a new business.
Sure.
I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Barrie Kempenfelt. I'm very active in that, and that brings me a great deal of joy. The fellowship with other Rotarians, the ability to help the community and give back a little bit is one of the things I'm most proud of and most enjoy. I'm not terribly successful, nor not terribly talented, but I'm an avid singer as well. Just a garage band kind of stuff and that sort of thing. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it a lot. And I was led to that by my brother, who is, if you're in Hamilton, you'd know his name because he's a local rock star there, sort of thing.
And is that is that the music you play, is rock?
Rock, blues, kind of Americana, Southern fried rock.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. Right now, the group of guys I'm playing with, we're practicing for a St. Paddy's Day show. So we're doing a lot of Irish stuff. So I'm getting my green on.
Nice, man. I love it.
And I'm still looking for a 5th. Oh, I love to walk.
Tell me why.
Well, in 2015, based on watching a movie called The Way with Martin Sheen and a cast of other folks, I walked El Camino de Santiago, which is an 800-kilometer walk from southwestern Spain or southwestern France across the north end of Spain. And it was really an interesting and cathartic experience, Jeff, just because your life simplifies to walking, eating, and resting, and that's it. So everything else that clouds up your mind and clutters you is just gone for a month. So that got me to getting a lot of joy out of just walking. And actually, next May, my youngest son and I are doing another Camino de Santiago, but the Portuguese one. It's about 2.5 weeks, so 225 kilometers, something like that.
The big pilgrimage is the one you already did, right?
Yeah.
That's a very spiritual pilgrimage that I've seen on a gazillion documentaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah.
And so you did that in a month. So you did 25 kilometers a day, roughly.
Yeah. It was actually 34 days. Took 2 rest days and walked about 24, 25 kilometers a day.
Spirituality is, I think most of us who connect with it would say it has a large impact on our life. I'm not going to say that everybody needs it. I'm not going to tell people what they need and don't need. But for the people who have delved into that world, there's this sense of awe and connectedness and oneness, whatever you believe in.
Sure.
And these grueling and very meditative, like focusing on a singular point, very down to the granular level practices. The gym is a big part of that for me. Obviously, it's not prolonged like that, but very painful and very uncomfortable, and one focus, one singular focus. These long runs that people do. It's amazing when all the technology pours away, all the distractions pour away, the stresses, how you start to view life slowly starts to switch. It's like when you're in this situation that only the necessities are relevant now, like health, sleep, movement, love. And that's really what you can boil down the happiest moments of your life to, where the rest kind of floats away.
Sure.
What it has done for me is it's rewired my perspective. A, B, all the things that when I go back to the world that bothered me, that kind of got me out of my zone for an hour, maybe a day, maybe 2 days, kind of were meaningless after doing something like that. It really shifts my perspective. Actually, what's his name? Armstrong wrote a book, and a big portion of the book was his perspective looking from the moon back to the planet. And he's like, everything changed when I saw everybody from one world, all the things that pissed me off before, the tribalism, the different factions. I'm looking at one rock and everybody's on it. Same team from a different rock changed everything for me. And although I will probably never do that, the way he explained it in that book really shifted it for me. And I found that things similar to what you have done have that same thing.
Yeah. And if I could boil it down into one statement, I'd say it rebooted my soul. That's all.
And even though that's just one statement, that's a hell of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So those are my 5 favorite things. I am passionate about business, but at the age that I'm at, as I indicated before, you start to think about what comes next. And so, but that's still 10, 12 years away, I would think, something like that.
And when you have those thoughts, I'm just curious, because you're a little further up the mountain than I am. What are those thoughts about? What does
I think about what I'd like to do is my partner Sharon and I both like to travel. So we'll do some traveling. We'll stay active and stay involved in sports. The sports change. It's not so much hockey and baseball and rugby now as it's pickleball and golf and curling. But I mean, that happens. So you stay active. You stay not necessarily focused on a specific goal, but focused on the goal of enjoying your years. Because as you know, it's a very, very short and finite period of time that we get to spend on this singular rock.
And it seems like, for me, the older I get, the more it speeds up. Yeah. And the more effort I put into enjoying my life, the more it speeds up. It's when I'm really bored and not having a good time, that time seems to go by very slowly, probably intentionally, whatever created all of this. But things speed up considerably so. And I'm curious, fitness is a huge part for me. But again, the education piece, if people can learn something on here, then it's a win. You've mentioned movement a number of times now in the 30 minutes that we've been talking. Do you think it's integral to living a good life, especially as we age, move throughout life?
Absolutely. I think everyone in the world spends some time relaxing and being somewhat sedentary, and that's fine. But if you overdo that, it leads to depression. It leads to a general feeling of malaise and unhappiness. And I think being outside and being active and trying to engage not just with other people, but with yourself and your own spirit, I think is integral to being the happiest person I can be. Again, I can't speak for other people, but that's kind of what I'm about, I think.
Yeah, I love it, man. Definitely a tenet of my life for sure. Hardships. We talk about hardships on here. I mean, your pilgrimage, I imagine, was not easy. And I find that there's two types of hardships, the ones that we voluntarily choose to move through, which personally, pound for pound, I think are the more valuable ones because we've decided to do it. Yeah. And then the hardships that are forced upon us when we're in necessity mode, like, and you have to survive. I think our survival mechanism kicks in and we just do it and find out that we're capable of things that maybe we didn't know. But when it's like, I'm going to step into this ice cold plunge right now, even though I don't have to, there's a couch right there and there's food and there's warmth, but I'm going to walk into that, 30-degree ice bath. It changes your mind quite a bit. Why do we talk about hardships? I think it's where we grow. I mean, physiologically speaking, that is fact. Your muscle grows in size and strength from pushing it to an area it hasn't been before. So that's fact. I'm not a neuroscientist, although I love that stuff, neuroplasticity, these types of things. But it seems to be true about the mind. I would even argue that maybe there's some truth there about the spirit as well. Even our relationships, having those hard conversations. But entrepreneurs have chosen typically, again, I'm using broad strokes here, but it was certainly much harder to start a business than it was to be an employee. Somebody told me what to do. I did what they said, whereas everything's on me to run my business. And it's been a lot more hours and a lot more stress, but a lot more rewarding. So where am I going with this? I don't think we talk about hardships enough. I don't think we look at them as the opportunity, kind of like the gold that they have presented themselves now to me, and the greatest business leaders and humans in general that I follow all talk about the value of hardship, that doing uncomfortable things, moving through them, leveling up is found in these kind of more painful places. And that pain isn't necessarily negative. In the eye of the beholder, it's subjective. It can be positive. In the gym, pain's positive. So it's not objectively negative. So we love to ask the guests to come on the show. So we've all been through hardships personally and in business. Any trials, tribulations, hardships that you've been through that when you look back in hindsight, there's no way you would remove this ingredient from the recipe that has now become you, because it was integral to you living the life you do today.
We don't have enough time to discuss all the hardships, but I've been very fortunate in my life to have a lot of wonderful things happen, and I'm grateful for all of that. In terms of hardship, I'm happy to share this with you. On October 28th, 1995, I came home at midnight after yet another night in the bar, and was faced with some unhappiness in my home life at that time, and laid down and woke up the next morning. And after having lived and drank as much as I did for 13 consecutive years, it just stopped. The desire to drink just went away immediately. So that had been an ongoing hardship in my life, and it just was gone that day. And so for 29 years and a little bit of change, I've not had a drink. And so I'm a gratefully recovering alcoholic at this time. The second one that I'd like to bring up is when I became a paralegal was in 2012. It was the Law Society gave a grandfathering clause to people who'd worked in the collection business. And I started out as a bill collector in 1992 and then worked my way up to managing companies and vice president of this or director of that at different collection agencies. Going out on my own as a paralegal, I quite frankly didn't sleep properly for about 3 or 4 years, not knowing how I was going to pay my mortgage. But then things happened. The universe provides not what you want, but what you need. And essentially, it just kind of was okay one day. And I've been very fortunate and had the support of a lot of friends and clients and loved ones, and built a very successful business. And the business that we're talking about now, the North Simcoe Property Management, is also a burgeoning success, which is fantastic. But I did that from a position of strength, so that this business didn't create a great deal of hardship for me and nor for Linda, but it was the right thing to do at the right time. And we recognized there was a market. We recognized that we could fill a void in the market, and we took advantage of that. Very
different starting points from the paralegal to North Simcoe Property Management.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not to mention, when did you start as a paralegal again?
2012.
Yeah. So you have another 12 years of skills and experience as well, plus the income and all that.
Yeah.
Wonderful stories. Really appreciate the openness and the honesty. I'm an addictions counselor on the weekend, and that all started from me breaking my legs at my late 20s, and a dependency formed from painkillers. So I learned how to get out of that over time, which took multiple years. So I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to give back in some way, and I just fell in love with that incredibly raw and honest, authentic community that now place called Cornerstone Recovery.
I'm familiar. I'm very familiar with it, and thank you for doing that. That's
Cornerstone Recovery.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. What a place.
Pardon me?
What a place. Love it.
Absolutely. I've my office is not too far from it, but it's like you see the real difference that you make in people's lives. And a lot of people that start, and addictions always have a bad rap, and it's a lack of strength of character, and it's not. Knowing what I know and being where I've been, I know that it affects doctors, lawyers, politicians, very, very successful people in the same way as it affects somebody that you would look and say, oh, that there's a bum on the street or something like that. And it's just not the case. It's relentless, cunning, baffling, and powerful, as we say, right? And to recognize it as a disease, I think is a great leap forward for society, to recognize that nobody wants to live on the street. Nobody wants to put a needle in their arm. Nobody wants to come home 3 sheets to the wind every night. There's just so many bad things about that lifestyle, but it just, your sense of reason goes away, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Decision-making capabilities. Yeah. The desperation that kicks it. It doesn't discriminate, and it sinks its claws in deep. Yeah. Really appreciate you sharing that story, especially from a position of success. People look at us all different ways. Labels happen every day. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to the comment you made a few moments ago about it digging its claws in the realm of success as well in societal terms. It doesn't matter who the person is.
For sure.
They could be affected by it. So I really appreciate you sharing that. It's very raw and vulnerable. And I do look at it as actually heavily so, great deal of courage, great deal of strength for a person to be able to share their story, the good, the bad, the ugly, the messiness of it. But we talked about some hardships that you wouldn't, when you look back, you wouldn't regret going through that. I don't know if you meant that about the alcohol part, but it seemed that way. Certainly from my perspective, I would not be who I am today had I not gone through that 10 years ago. And there's no way I would remove that because I needed to get my ass kicked personally.
So did I. Exactly the same feeling. I would mention, though, when I talked about the 5 things that I'm most grateful for, my sobriety is the one single thing that I'm most grateful for, because none of the other good things I'm grateful for I would have without my sobriety.
Right?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Before I just completely derail this conversation and take it sideways, let's stay on point here. You're on stage. Just the picture I paint. 500,000 people in the crowd. Doesn't matter. There's a lot of your ideal potential clients in the crowd. They give you the mic 30, 60, 90 seconds. What do you want them to know?
I want them to know kind of what we've talked about, Jeff, is that if you have an investment property, you're managing it yourself, is it fun for you? Do you enjoy getting calls at 1 a.m. because the toilet's not working or a furnace isn't working? Because we can take care of that for you. And the cost is minimal. The great thing is we find you tenants. That's not an extra cost. We take care of a tenant that's not paying. When I say take care of, obviously from a legal sense, not from any.
You don't whack them?
No, we don't. We don't. And that's not an extra cost. And essentially what we want to do is make your experience as a property owner happy and mutually beneficial between you and a good tenant. That's my 30-second elevator pitch.
Super valuable. I'm thinking about getting back into the business.
Well, hopefully you'll think nice thoughts about us when you do.
Last question for you, Larry. Actually, let's wrap this one up first. What's the best way to get a hold of you guys? if people want to reach out, best way to connect.
Sure. Our website is northsimcoepm.ca. My toll-free number is 888-244-3697. The email addresses are either Larry, or actually the best one is info@northsimcoepm.ca. And then we'll get back in touch with you as quickly as we can and get you hooked up with the best tenants and a great rate.
Perfect. And all of that information, I'm assuming, is also on the website.
That's right.
Yeah. northsimcoepm.ca.
Yeah.
Last question for you. This is my secret one. I have all my rules for life here. I say I take life very seriously so that I can have a lot of fun. Whereas some people say, don't take life too seriously. No, I want to do it right. And to me, that is to make sure that I have the target in front of me all the time. I only talk about a handful of things, Larry. I'm only interested in a handful of things at this stage of my life, creeping up on 40 now. My mentor, very lucky, in my early 20s, told me, she said, study broadly so that you figure out as many things as you can that you like, that you don't like. Study broadly. See a lot of them. And then as you grow, as you get older, you'll narrow your path, and then you want to study deeply. You want to start getting really good at the things that you're interested in. So I only talk about a handful of things, and they really boil down to like health, wealth, love, happiness type of things. But within there, impact is a big one. Mentorship is a big one. Entrepreneurship, fitness, health, pushing that brain power. But this question in particular is about impact. And she taught me about this at a very young age. She really started opening up my eyes to, it's like, Jeff, you're born, you will die. What does the middle equate to? Have you ever thought about that? And at 21, it was like, no. I'm like, girls, sports, money, muscular body. That's it. Very superficial. Yeah. Yes. And right. I wanted the shiny rims, black tinted windows. I got that car. It was fun for the time. Got me into trouble. But I really started thinking, like, what is the net result of me being on this planet? And at that time, probably wasn't that great. But it was because of that thought that led me to a better place. And now it's the thing that drives me. It's the thing that drives the business. It's the thing that drives my health. It's the thing that I'm focused on for the future and enjoying in the moment. And it is one of the most fascinating questions to ask another human being. Some people have never thought about it, and maybe that can plant a seed. But some people have incredibly thought out answers that change me as a human being. So we love to ask the guests on the show, Larry, what would you like your impact to be?
Well, that's a great question. And when I was a young man, when I was a boy and a young man, I thought I'm bound for some really cool stuff. And you often think about that as notoriety or fame or something like that. And obviously that didn't happen, because this is the most famous thing I've ever done, being on your podcast probably. But ultimately, my legacy and my impact is going to be felt, hopefully, for generations to come through my children, my grandchildren, my friends and family, their kids and their grandkids. And when the time comes that I'm no longer here, if somebody looks back and said, he gave me some good advice, or he was a solid guy, he helped me, then I'll be happily wherever you go after this life ends.
Love it, man. Nice. It has been a treat to talk to you, Larry. Some of these conversations, we've done about 450 of these now, and some of them have gone by very, very quickly. Some of them have gotten deep into the messiness of life, and those are my favorite. But it's not too often that we get an individual like yourself on here that has experienced life in the way that you have. And it's been a real joy for me. I appreciate you coming on the show, Larry.
No, it's been my pleasure. I really do appreciate you having me, and it's been great to know you. There's nothing better than making a new friend.
That's it.
All right, brother.
Until we talk again, you have an enjoyable rest of the day. And if we don't speak, have a very happy holiday season, my man.
And to you and all your listeners. Thanks so much.
Thanks, pal.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpwithjeffandsean.com. That's gnpwithjeffandsean.com, or call 705-413-3775.